Hello and welcome to another Watcher of Realms video, and in this video we're going to be going over Krodor, the new character for the event that has obviously started. We'll check out the event as it stands as well, just to see what we have to do. Is he worth going for as a character? Let's get into some of the info. So if you head over to the summon section, you can see there is a new hero fusion. And it is for Krodor. It lasts for just under 23 days. But we also have one for Drager that lasts the same amount of time. This is because we need 4 copies of Drager at tier 5 and promoted to tier 5 as well. And we can get our copy of Krodor. Maximum amount of Krodors we can get is 1. And if we go over to Drager, we can actually get an unlimited amount of Dragers during this time. So if you do somehow manage to get some of these rare characters outside of the event from summoning, I did have a look and he's not in there right now, you can potentially get more copies of Drager. I would like to get a copy of her just as a character because she looks like a decent defender for the Nightmare faction as well. Should help with like the Nightmare faction trial. But we're going to be mainly looking at Krodor here, just to kind of see what he's like. But before we do that again, we're just going to check out the events tab. We have got a Brave Conquest here, and if you can see down at like 80% completion of Brave Conquest, you do get 1 copy of Gorgron, the actual rare character you need. And then in Oracle's Trial, you get a copy around about, I don't know, 60% progression. Actually, it's around about 50%, just under 50%. It just looks like 60%, but it's 50% of max progression on the bottom. So it's easier seemingly to get them in Oracle's trials in the progression down the bottom than it will be in the actual events. But I don't think it should be too crazy. You can get 16 without doing any summons during the event, but you have to hit everything. I'm personally going to try and get 1 or 2 from the summons just to make sure. I'll just have maybe extra rares, or maybe I'll just sell them for diamonds at the end if I have some extras. So let's take a look at Krodor. He is part of the North Throne faction. As you can see, he is a defender, and he is a big boy. He is an ogre, and he's joining a long list of defenders in this faction. I have got King Hars, obviously I've got Olag, and Isolde. So there's quite a few characters in here, and there's also that half horsewoman as well. So like, basically, I'm looking at this character. Are they good enough for more, like Immortal Codex to be in that team? We can have a quick look. If we look at the character's info, so the talent says damage scales off of defense, increases defense by 2% for 20 seconds each time, taking damage capping at 20% defense. I mainly see this as the 20% defense side of things, because if I am going to look at this character as an Immortal Codex character, unfortunately, you can't do damage. I think you should be able to do damage to the characters or the enemies that you're blocking, but as it stands, it isn't the case. Kind of standard though, block is going to be 3, cost 19, anywhere between 17 and 20 seems to be kind of normal for a tank. And then revival time again standard at 60. We'll look at his basic attack. This is just his normal attack. It's a standard, deals 100% damage, scales up to 120%. After the full upgrade. It's just going to be normal physical damage, single target, pretty simple and pretty standard. Checking out the ultimate, you can see it's called Iron Defense. It is a manual ultimate. It costs 1,000 to actually run this. You start off with 400 rage. It lasts for 15 seconds, increases block by 2 and defense by 70%. This effect lasts 15 seconds, but you can increase defense boost up to 100% defense. And the effect duration up to 20 seconds, reducing the skill cost down to 900, which is pretty much in line, I think, with Olag in terms of how long, how much rage it costs and roughly how long it lasts. So basically, it looks like it could potentially help out in that Immortal Codex. Like I said, extra block is pretty much the only way you can do damage in the Immortal Codex. So definitely, just on this alone, looks very important to go for if you want to actually get some reasonably high scores in that Immortal Codex without going for more promoted characters. This is obviously free-to-play accessible, so if you're a free-to-play, definitely should be aiming to get this character just for Immortal Codex, if nothing else. Now, he does also have a passive called Braveheart. Once HP drops below 30%, immediately enters a state of anger, bellows at up to 10 enemies ahead and inflicts attack reduction on them. The next 5 basic attacks change into striking at most 10 enemies ahead, dealing 150% AoE damage and inflicting stun. The ultimate is not available during this stage. This effect can only be triggered 1 time per deployment. Interesting, but not amazing. In Immortal Codex, it will always happen, but it will stop you from being able to do your ultimate. How long does it last for? I didn't really see. Oh, 5 basic attacks maybe is what it lasts for. So theoretically, if you've got a 1.5 or 1.8 attack interval, it's going to last between 8 and 10 seconds, generally speaking. So there could be an 8 and 10 second window, or almost guaranteed on Immortal Codex, where you will not be able to do your ultimate. Just got to be able to time it well on that. The damage is going to get increased by an extra 30% and then 60% again. So it'll be 240% AoE damage. It's not too bad. Basic attack count goes up by 2. So it will last between 11 to 14 seconds at this point. And again, it's whether you think the ultimate is more important to do or not. It's a bit of a caught out situation where you don't have much choice. It's going to happen. You can't do your ultimate during this. And it is the way it is. In terms of placement, I guess you want him facing the Krodor, because it could probably go over the lanes just to reduce the attack on the enemies, those fire pit enemies. In Immortal Codex, I mean, he's going to be useful in other places, but I'm mainly thinking about him in Immortal Codex just because that's the main usage for tanks, in my opinion, outside of the ones I've already got. I'm looking to improve my Immortal Codex with all the tanks that I've got already, so will this guy do it or not? So far, not too bad. And then lastly, he does have another passive, and it is called Unity Strength. Based on the number of adjacent allies, increases physical damage reduction and damage dealt. The effect reaches a maximum of 12% when there are 3 allies in range. Now, with the rest of this kit, I don't see this being very good for Immortal Codex, but this could be really good for AMR. Because in AMR, you generally will have between 2 to maybe 4 characters of your team in adjacent squares if he is in the tank position. Plus, the fact that he does damage reduction could help your team progress because he's going to make the boss do less damage when he obviously takes some hits. So you might want to proc his passive that actually, does that on purpose, because he doesn't really get a bigger bonus when he gets the extra block. He'll get extra defense on his ult, but in AMR, that's not going to make any difference. He could be really good there. Obviously, a good healer is going to be needed in that as well, but that could be nice. And he's going to be doing potentially some extra damage to help with AMR. If you haven't reached AMR 18, could be useful. And if they do expand AMR, which is most likely going to happen just because it's on stage 18 right now, he could be useful. He actually could be useful. I think Olag is probably still the better tank, but Olag does 0 damage. He adds 0 damage to the team, whereas this guy could potentially add at least a little bit of damage to the team, and that's obviously great when it comes to AMR progression. Now, I will check out his awakenings, but it will be said that we can only get 1 copy of this character from the event, and with Alistair, they haven't brought him back in any capacity so far, whether it be just putting him onto the general summoning wheels and stuff like that. Will Krodor come back, be able to get him awakened? Who knows? I have seen actually someone did use an Awakening Crystal on Alistair because he was really good in Immortal Codex, apparently Awakening 1. But yeah, it is very expensive to do that, and they're very rare. You're going to get Awakened 5 Krodor very early, If we look at Awaken 1, you can see when gaining shields, shield strength is increased by 20%. He'll have to rely on other characters for his shields unless something in his Awakening does give him a shield here. But he maybe pairs up quite nicely with Vortex, and Vortex does shield. So that could be a nice little duo potentially in AMR, I'm thinking as well. Not too bad. Awakening 2, just flat defense. His damage is based off of defense as well. So it effectively is increasing his damage and his survivability, or at least the amount of damage he's going to be taking. The next Awakening is going to be, during the state of anger, basic attacks restore an additional rage of 50. That's actually really big, because he will attack 7 times fully maxed. So he'll be able to get 350 rage just from getting in that state. That can only happen once a battle at the moment, but that's not too bad. That's going to be almost half of his ultimate. So if he's not already there, he'll be there very quickly, and you can pop his ultimate almost instantly when when this comes off a cooldown. Next up is going to be all damage reductions by 8%. That's actually not too bad. Just a little bit of more survivability. Kind of standard. We saw the same on the tank that's going to be coming out this weekend. And then lastly, the State of Anger has a cooldown time of 60 seconds. This is where it gets interesting, particularly in certain modes. Maybe AMR, it won't make much difference because he'll be dead if you stop healing him. It can maybe proc this once safely, but it could potentially just proc randomly throughout a fight. That's not too bad. He doesn't have any, like, brink of death survivability. That's the only thing. It's not going to be like Baron where he can't be taken out for a certain period of time. He still needs a healer almost continuously. It's pretty much as simple as that. They do seem to be trying to perfect the damage dealing tank though. We did have Orim, who was terrible. And we have had like Azor, who is a mixed bag. Some people swear that he's actually not too bad in the right situation. I think in GVG could be good. And maybe even this guy in GVG could be okay, just because of the fact that he will go down to that 30%. And he generally won't get one shot, so it could proc. And yeah, every 60 seconds it could proc again. But that's Awakened 5. And right now we can't even get Awakened 1. So that's a very big pipeline thing when it comes to Krodor. So I think Krodor is going to be pretty decent for Immortal Codex. Maybe pretty decent for AMR 2. If you haven't got like significant damage output or damage reduction. The damage reduction side of things could be quite good there. And it can last a very long time. You could try and cheese it. For instance, in AMR, you could give him basically no attack speed. And that way it would last for a longer period of time because his individual attacks, of which he would do 7, would last longer. If we look at his base interval, it's 2.4 seconds. So if we add that up, that should be somewhere in the region of 17, 18 seconds that it could potentially last for. So that would be pretty good for in terms of like reducing the damage of the boss. That's probably going to be at least one proc of the boss's ultimate in AMR. I'm more thinking the future of AMR for myself, but if you haven't completed AMR, it could be useful for you. But that was just my little look at Krodor. Seems interesting. Obviously, he's got a lot to battle with. I think Olag's still like a #1 tank for me. I haven't got any of the like big boys in terms of the legendaries that are tanks, but I'm pretty happy with Krodor here. And like I said, I think he should slot into that Immortal Codex team pretty easily. Will it be worth skilling him up? Well, I'll make some decisions. I'm definitely going to be enjoying the next 3 weeks of the event. It's always nice to get a new character. Tell me what you think, though, about Krodor as a character. What are your plans for him? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.